Hi. I want to invite you to allow yourself to feel joy. What I know is that joy is our natural state. So I just want to start there. That whether you are actually feeling your joy or not, that joy is a natural state of being. And to the degree in which we allow ourselves to feel that, it's to that degree that we are actually living to our fullest potential. This month, we're talking about play. And when I think about play, the quality that comes up for me, the quality of life, is indeed joy. And in 2022, we're looking at everyday wonder and living everyday wonder. And in particular this month, the theme is play. And some of us might think how insensitive it is to think about play or to think about joy when so many people are struggling in the world. So let that sit for a moment. How do we talk about or live from this place of joy and this place of play when there's wars, there's famine, there's all kinds of things happening in our world? I was talking with a friend the other day, and she greeted me and then asked me, "Reverend, how do I do this? How do I live with my privilege, with my white privilege, with my U.S. privilege, with my economic privilege? How do I live with my privilege when there's so much happening in our world?" And it's an interesting question that maybe some of us have been asking ourselves. Even those of us who are living here in the U.S. who may not have lots of privilege, we certainly are living in a society and in a day and age where if you are on this call, if you're watching this from a device, it means that you have internet or that you have Wi-Fi or that you have a device that can connect you with other people, when there are so many in our world who are not able to make those connections. And I'm reminded of I'm reminded of Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese poet, he wrote, "Then the woman said, 'Speak to us of joy and sorrow.' And he answered, 'Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears.' And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. It is not the cup that holds your wine. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in by the potter's oven?" What profound words we have here by a poet who recognizes that the depth of our sorrow actually carves out the container in which we contain our joy. What I love about Khalil Gibran is that later on in that same poem, He says that some of you might say that joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is greater than joy. And each of us have experienced those times of deep, deep sorrow and deep, deep pain, and can go, no, the sorrow, the pain of sorrow is definitely greater than the joys of my joy. And some of us might go, yeah, I've been in some deep, deep places, but my joys definitely outweigh my sorrow. And he says, but I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. So Kahil is of that mindset that joy and sorrow in our human experience, the yin and the yang in our human experience, are inseparable. That when we're sitting with one, whether we're sitting in the joy and in the bliss and in the fun and in the play, that the sorrow is asleep in our bed, because they are inseparable. And when we're sitting with the deep, deep sorrow, and we're in it and we're feeling it, oh, remember that joy is actually asleep in your bed, meaning that we have access to both, because in Kahil's imagining of this, it is available to us because they are inseparable. What's interesting to consider is that in our science of mind philosophy, what we know is that in the absolute is that God is joy, period. And that joy, that quality of joy, is actually who we are. And we have the great opportunity in this flesh suit, in this realm of duality, we have the opportunity to know both. And then to choose which one we're going to sit with and which one we're going to allow to sleep in our bed. I appreciate you, Jan, for your meditation and the way that you brought all the ways that we can play and bring joy or discover the indwelling presence of joy by engaging in activities that we think bring us joy, but that actually are activating the joy that we already are. Those ideas, those things that we participate in that remind us of the truth of who we are. What's interesting is that, you know, when I think about spiritual practice and when I think about our spirituality, because that's why we come to be the Spiritual Learning Center, is to be reminded of the truth of who we are, and to be reminded that we have tools laid at our feet that we can use to remind us of the truth of who we are, so that we might live our best life. That we might recognize that our life is not just this little human life, but that our life, that life itself, which is who we are, that we are the unrepeatable, unique, magnificent, dynamic way that God, that life shows up in human form. That the truth of who we are, our real ID, is not our age, our race, our name, our gender, our orientation. That these are the accessories of our life, like I wear earrings or a necklace. These are the accessories of my life. But that life itself, that life that I am, is God. Is life itself, and it is power and presence and peace and joy. And yet, in this human experience, what I get an opportunity to know from time to time is that with the great joy also comes the great sorrow and the great sadness. And that at every moment I am at choice. And that for me to recognize that when I'm in the sadness, to be there fully. Nobody's asking you to deny the sadness or the sorrow. Beware of wallowing in it. Be aware that even when we choose to experience fully the sadness, to experience fully the anger, to experience fully the joy, that we are always at choice. That is powerful. That in this moment, I am at choice. So here's the deal, is that many of us, even in this spiritual community and throughout the world, are experiencing some atrocities. Here, even in our spiritual community, we're experiencing sickness. We're experiencing the death. We're experiencing folks not being able to really utilize all of their body parts. We are experiencing, that disconnection. And to think about it like, wow, I am not able to do the things that I was able to do when I was 20. Oh, I'm not able to do and experience the things that I was able to do when I was 30. Oh, how life in this human form, how it progresses, and the things that, like pulling things out of my memory quickly. Those things shift and change. And at any moment, I can wallow in, oh, woe is me, woe is me. If you had my life, you would be, in deep, dark sorrow too. Or through our spiritual practice, through our practices of prayer and meditation, through our practice of being in sacred service, through our practice of play as a spiritual practice, we can begin to recognize that at any moment I am at choice. And I can sit on that pity pot and have a pity party all by myself and maybe invite others. Or I can be there for a spell and then say, okay, Joy is sleeping in the bed. Let me wake up Joy. Hello, Joy, wake up. Hey, sweetie, wake up. I need you. I need you, baby. Mwah. Come on, it's time to wake. Get out of bed. Get out of bed, Joy, and come and sit with me. Come and spend some time with me. Come and reveal to me that which is already my truth, which is in the absolute. It is already my absolute truth, though I have chosen, or through some default way of being, I have been in this sorrow for so long. You see, the moment that I admit that I've been stuck in beliefs and behaviors that no longer serve me and that cut me off from the power of consciousness, it's when I recognize that whoa, sitting here too long, I have cut myself off from the power and the connection of consciousness, of the great I am, of the joy that I am. Holy cow, I've cut myself off. Whoa, who did this? Where'd that come from? I did this. The circumstances, when I turn on the news and all I see is wars and reports of wars, and all I see is, this and that, and I get bombarded, of course, the news is not news. The news is telling us, the things that are out of the ordinary. What is the ordinary is that there is love happening, that people are coming together, that by us actually focusing on our joy, that we are the ones who can tip the scales. But if we indeed, as a community and as individuals, undivided from the whole, as we as a people, if we continue to focus on the sorrow and the pain, what we are creating is more of it. And it is deeper and harder to get out of it. So what if our job, what if our prayer is to be in the joy, to be already in the joy that that war is already settled, and to be in the joy and to see it with our mind's eye, to call it forth into our own consciousness and awareness. What if we sit in the joy of a free people? Ernest Holmes told us, and he said that he believes that emancipation from discord is available to everyone. Those are our declarations of faith. And so what if we indeed begin to call that forth? Now, this doesn't have to be all serious, right? Like in those moments where we experience that smile on our face, what if we smile and then go, oh yeah, and this is the smile for the world. And we become the joy surrogate, the play surrogate for the world. I like that kind of surrogacy. I want to be that surrogate. I want to be the play. I want to be that play. I want to be that one who doesn't take becoming spiritual so seriously. I want to be the one to find that, recognizing that there's one power, one presence, one life, that life has created everything out of itself. Therefore, the life of each and every person is the life of God at play right now, even when it seems like or feels like discord, even when it hurts our hearts, that God is living full out in each and every moment. What if I were to actually embody that and embrace that, bring that into my prayer, into my meditation? What if I am the one to experience the joy and say, yes, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me and the world can't take it away, but that this is the joy of God, and that I allow that joy to shine forth even in the face of no agreement, even in the face of war, even in the face of death, even in the face of debilitation, even in the face of famine, even in the face of no agreement, even in the face when people say God does not even exist, even in the face of that. Can I be that quality of joy? And it doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be work. That's why I love musicians. I was thinking this morning, I was like, oh, I want a little joke. And the joke that came to mind was like, why don't people take musicians seriously? Because they play around town all the time. I want to play. Imagine if, musicians, their work is to perform and do music, but they call it play. Imagine if our work, we considered it play. Imagine if we found the joy in each and every one of those moments. Imagine when life gets tough, if our default is to play and take a pause to play, to take a pause to remember the truth of God. Because while the world is forgetting that they are the unique and unrepeatable way that God is showing up in human form, we have to be the ones to remember that truth. Otherwise, we're jumping on the bandwagon and forgetting, right? Remember the sign language for forget? Wiping the mind off, the brain away, that screen of the mind, right? We must be the ones to remember that we are joy. I had a couple of other slides that I wanted to show off, but in this moment, the one that I definitely want to share with you is the affirmation. And that affirmation is I let my joy shine as the divine. I let my joy shine as the divine. And we're reminded by Ernest Holmes that if you would know a God of joy, you must be joyful. And that's out of the book, Think Your Troubles Away. If you would know a God of joy, you must be joyful. And then back to the affirmation, I let my joy shine as the divine. Now, of course, Ernest Holmes would say, if you know a God of joy, then you must be joyful. It's only because, one more time, there's a power and a presence and a life. That life is God, or the other word for God is joy. And if you would know this God as joy, if you would know this joy, then you would be joyful because you are created in the image and likeness of joy. And so, what benefit does it do us to forget that at our core we are that joy? Even when we're having the human experience of pain and suffering at times, or when the world is living in discord. You know, like Khalil Gibran says, in that discord, it is in the deepest of that discord that we remember, right? It's in that sorrow, when we're sitting in the sorrow, that joy is asleep in our bed. And what the world is calling forth now is for that joy, for that peace, for that love, for that serenity to be at hand. And one of the ways that I am in solidarity with that call for peace is by allowing myself, through my spiritual practice, to be in the joy, because I am saying yes to peace, yes to love, yes to a life of freedom. And my yes comes forth through that love. And so, as we take a look at how we are living each and every moment, each and every day, let us be reminded that our life is the life of God. Let us be reminded that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. Whether we have use of our limbs, whether we have use of a vehicle, whether we have use of any or all of our body functions, whether we have use of whatever, that heaven is within. And that God is having this experience as human, as me. And to the degree in which I recognize that and remember that that is my truth, how do I bring that joy into that? You know, for me, sometimes it's getting, along with all of the other things that Jan brought up, for me, sometimes it's just getting some colorful pencils and coloring some mandalas. Sometimes it's being with a scripture or a sacred text. Sometimes it's rewriting the Serenity Prayer or the St. Francis of Assisi's prayer or the Lord's Prayer. Sometimes it's writing a poem about that and embracing my internal Khalil Gibran. You know, sometimes it's just that gratitude journal. Our spiritual practice doesn't have to be so serious. We can definitely find God at play in our surfing, in our dancing, in our singing. That there is an aliveness, something that wakes up within us, and it is that joy that has been sitting or sleeping in our bed. And so wherever you find yourself, beloved, on our path and on this path of your eternal life, remember that at your core, you are joy, and that God is at play as you. God is at play as you. Life is at play as you. Play with abandon. Play like nobody is watching. Find that inner joy and allow it to fill your heart, to fill your life, so that the joy is overflowing and begins to spill upon others. Let's go into prayer. How grateful I am in this moment to simply recognize the one power, the one presence, the one life that is God, that is Yahweh, that is all of these amazing spiritual names that we have given it. And right now I say that the name is the quality that I give it. It's called joy. There is one joy. And that joy is my life now. Joy has created everything out of itself. Therefore, I am the unique and unrepeatable way that joy shows up in human form. This is the truth of who I am. And so I simply embrace the joy that I am. I awaken to it. I allow it to run free in, through, and as my life. And in those instances when I choose otherwise, I sit there, I allow it to be fully, and then I choose joy one more time. I choose to be at the center, at my core. I choose to be the joy that I am, and allow it to allow myself to experience it and express it fully. And as I know that this is my truth, I know that this is the truth for all. So my prayer in this moment is that we all of us, every human being, awaken to the joy that we are. That we might lay down our weapons, that we might lay down our violence, that we might lay down anything unlike joy, and actually feel full of joy, the joy that we are. This is my prayer individually and my prayer collectively for our divine humanity. May each of us awaken to the joy that we are. For this and so much more, I give thanks. And because I pray believing it is done, I let it go, mic drop, I let it be, and I say, and so it is. And so it shall be, beloveds, that we awaken to the joy of who we are.